Hello there again, it's Hans here, and welcome back to Hans Library Corner. I just wanted to first thank everyone for their amazing replies and comments on last week's video. I got a lot of amazing comments from friends and also from strangers. I just would like to thank everyone for taking the time to just send a nice reply and make my day a little bit better. And I'm glad you all enjoyed the video. You all seem to enjoy the introduction to me as a person and to this channel, and I hope we can make many amazing videos to come. For today's video I wanted to step back in the past a little bit and take a look at the books I read in September. One major part I want to do with this channel is to kinda frame my initial reactions to books, so I can look back to said books in a few years down the line and can still see what my initial reaction was to said book, if I want to reread it or if I want to decide whether to unhaul it or something. So that's why I want to do a wrap-up video each month. And since this one is a little bit late, it might be a little bit awkward, but we'll see where this goes. These are the books I read in September. I read six books in September, which is a pretty average number for me. I usually end up reading almost one book a week, just over one book a week. So yeah, let's take a look at these 6 books. I gave 3 of these books 4 stars and 3 of these books 5 stars. I usually rate books pretty high, 3, 4 or 5 stars, and anything lower than that means I probably shouldn't have finished it to begin with, but yeah. The first book I read was The Ode by Dr. Strange. This is a graphic novel by Brian K. Vaughan, and who was the writer, and Marcus Martin, who was the illustrator. Dr. Strange is one of my favorite characters in the movies at this moment for the MCU. I'm really hyped for next year's installment. And I read several Dr. Strange graphic novels before. And when I was looking online for what a good introduction to the character was, The Ode came up. The Ode talks about a story in which Wong gets ill, and Dr. Strange has to recover a magical and mystical medicine to restore Wong. And there's a lot of intricate plot lines woven through, and for a story that's only 5 or 6 issues long, it was really packed with a lot of stuff. I read it in one afternoon. That's usually how I preferred my comics, just read them like a comic, or more like a movie I should say. And that's what I did here. The interesting thing about the story, I think, is the reason also why they made the story is that Dr. Strange used to be a neuro doctor, a neurosurgeon. So he was a medical professor, and he had to partake in the oath of medical to show that you're capable of working on patients, and that you will do anything in your path to rescue said patient, and that you will always fight for medical truth. And in this story they kind of connect that part of Dr. Strange's character into his mystical side, and connect his mystical side back to his medical duty, in which he used to do this oath, and he wants to protect everyone in the world from this mysterious illness that's spreading, not across Wong only, but also across many other patients. And they are leaning heavily on the themes of this in this novel, in this graphic novel, and I really enjoyed that part of it because it gave another angle at Doctor Strange. The other Doctor Strange novels I've seen so far usually dive into his sorcerer's side, which is also fun, but I think that this part is also an important part of the character, and therefore I gave it 4 stars. I didn't give it 5 stars because it's short. I usually have the idea that some parts need to be rushed or are a bit convenient for the story to finish in a few issues. So I usually prefer just a little bit longer time to spend with this character. So that's why I gave it 4 stars instead of 5, but it was a really amazing tale. And if you're looking to get this or loan it from the library, I really want to suggest it because it's a really good comic. So the second book I read in September was Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. After reading Mistborn last year, I really wanted to delve back into some Brandon Sanderson novels and explore the Cosmere. I eventually want to read Way of Kings, which is now scheduled to be read next year with some other small booktubers. We're gonna read it together as a buddy read and have a live discussion about it. But I wanted to read 2 of his standalone novels before I start The Way of Kings, namely Elantris and Warbreaker, which I still need to read. So I read Elantris in September. It's a pretty big book, but it's really interesting. Elantris is a tale about a sort of city which is Arlon. No, K is a city. K is the city of the country of Arlon, and it lies just as outside a ruined city that's called Elantris. Elantris used to be some sort of god's capital, but has since fallen into ruin and despair. And there are a few central characters. There's a prince of Arlon who gets taken by the Shiod. The Shiod is this illness that's brought the downfall of the Elantrians, the godlike beings, and the prince is also getting the disease, and all the diseased are put back into the capital of K, sort of as a jail, as a prison. Then there's this other character who is a princess from another kingdom. She was supposed to be wed to this prince, but the prince has been taken by the Shiod, and everyone says he's dead. Most people don't know he's taken by the Shiod. So as a widower, because she's wed by law, she tries to upset the political situation in the country, because the father of the prince, the king, is not really doing really well with the political situation. And there's also a third character who is Horatin, yes. Horatin is a priest of some kind of very strict religious clan, and that priest has been given the duty to try to convert everyone from this country into the new religion. And these 3 forces kind of collapse and not collapse, convert and turn around each other and get interwoven with each other, and these characters get to know each other, which is super interesting. The story was amazing, the magic was perfect, the way the magic is kind of broken in this world, and to see a person try to figure out why it's broken, and sort of delve deep into magic with a sort of layman's perspective, so from a 0 point, you truly get to experience the magic in its fullest potential, because you don't need to know stuff beforehand. You can just learn with the character as it goes on. That's a part I really enjoyed. Political situations in high fantasies is something I usually don't follow. It goes over my head, but this one I was able to keep up because the parties in the political situation were fairly limited. What else was amazing at the zoo? The characters were amazing. All of the main characters were amazing. Some of the side characters were amazing, and the writing was really good, especially if you consider this was the first book Brandon Sanderson decided to publish, even though it wasn't the first book that he wrote. I don't know, I just really enjoyed this novel, and while it wasn't as good as Mistborn, I don't think you should compare them, because it's two very different things. But yeah, it was really good, and if you like fantasy, I would really advise you reading this, because it's a standalone. So if you, well, in the future it won't be a standalone anymore, but that's gonna take a few years. So if you pick it up in the next few years, you have a standalone fantasy that's really good, and it's written with a really good writing style and characters. So, yeah, really enjoy this standalone fantasy. Next up, I think this wrap-up really shows how diverse I read, because I read almost 5 or 6 different genres across the books I read. But the next books I read was To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. This is slowly turning into a classic. It was written in 1960, I believe. So yeah, 1960. So it isn't really a classic just yet. I don't know what the age mark is. So sorry for that. It seemed my battery died again. I've got to find a solution for that. But I was telling you about this book. So it's about 2 kids that are the children of a lawyer who is defending a black man in an alleged rape case. So a group of white people are saying this black man raped their daughter, and the daughter is coming forward as having said it happened as well, and he's defending them, and it's all about the summer around that incident, about the societal pressures that are put upon this family, and about the kids sort of getting to know what their dad is doing through the reactions of other people towards them. That beautiful language, and it told a really compelling and good story. I gave this book 4 stars. I only gave it 4 stars instead of 5 because sometimes the I don't know, the story seemed hard to follow, but in the sense that sometimes the story took me out of the story, so to say. That there's a lot of stuff coming together and converging, and sometimes I found it a little bit hard to believe that that was what happening was the truth. But I really love this book. I think it's a really worthy story to read. The only thing is the black man is a side character in the story, so it's not really about it. It talks about racism, but it didn't play with, play is not the right word, but it didn't use the theme of racism for the right purpose in my mind, or in the right way. It fell a bit flat at the end, that's what I want to say. I wished it was more end-capped, but in a historical sense I probably made more sense to write this story than the story I would maybe have liked to see. So I respect the author's vision of the story, and yeah, I enjoy it for what it is. One thing is that I heard the sequel was really bad, so I'm not gonna pick it up. Yeah. In the sequel, some characters in this book turn out to be assholes, and it ruins this book as well, so I'm not gonna go there. The next book I read was East by Edith Patu. It's also sometimes known as North Child. It has a different cover then. This book also has a gorgeous different cover with the girl standing, with Rose. Rose, the girl, is standing there, and then the polar bear behind. But I really love this cover as well. This is a story that is a fairy tale or a folk tale retelling. It retells the story of East of the Sun, West of the Moon, which is an old Norse folktale. It tells about a white bear who goes to a family, giving them fortunes and good health in return for their youngest daughter. And the youngest daughter then goes to a sort of Beauty and the Beast castle, where she has to live with the bear. And she weaves, she makes clothes and other fabric items, and then but it all turns out to be that the person that Rose is sleeping with, because there's a bed, and in the night a man comes laying beside her. That turns out to be the bear, and then it all turns out to be a story of how to revert the person to a bear, the bear to a person again, and about the circumstances that all couple are beside it. That's the original fairy tale. This takes a spin on it. I told you about the original folktale, so I wouldn't spoil this book too much, even though a lot of themes are carried through, like any fairy tale retelling. It's really good, actually really good. It's told in very short, concise chapters, so it's a very quick read. It really has a language which takes you into the story, and it's easy to imagine seeing you in this polar landscape, and it all feels like a polar adventure of a lifetime. The only thing I sometimes find hard to believe is the distances. Sometimes they would travel on the bear from Norway to France within a matter of a few days, and I was like, whoa, that would probably take a little bit longer. But apart from that, I gave this book 5 stars because it's turning out to be a new favorite, I think. I might, of course, change my rating in the future, but for now, this really is a good fairy tale retelling, and something I enjoy really. Yeah, so please read it if you like fairy tale retellings and if you like polar adventures, because this is a true polar adventure. The next book I read is We Are Okay by Nina LeCour. This is a YA novel about a girl who seems to have left her life behind in the America's West Coast, and she now lives in New York on the East Coast. And her best friend from her old life, so to speak, is coming to visit her for just before Christmas, just to visit her because they haven't seen her since the summer. And I think this book is an exploration of grief, an exploration of what a person can do to you if they keep up a shield around them and lies and words that aren't as good. So that's what this story tells about. It was really good. Yeah, I think the main character who deals with mental health problems really hit me. I recognize myself in some of those problems from the past, and I think it was a really good exploration of grief and of mental health problems and how people in your life can really impact that. And it wasn't too long. I read this in 2 days. It was just over 200 pages. It's really good. I want to reread it in the future, I think, but I'm gonna wait a little bit before, so I forget the story a little bit, and then I'm gonna reread this because I'm really interested to see how I'll think about the story with all the information already in my head. So yeah, if you like a YA story that tackles mental health problems, this is a really good book for that. And then the last book I read is The Eternals, written by Neil Gaiman and illustrated by John Romita Jr. I read this book for 2 cases in September because one, the movie is coming out for The Eternals in early November, and secondly because it's by Neil Gaiman, and even though it's not the first author I think of when I think of my favorite authors, I've probably read the most books from Neil Gaiman than from any other author, so I really want to explore all his comics too. I already read Marvel 602, it's a really good take on Marvel, and then I'm also gonna read Sandman in the future. And I think Neil Gaiman is a really good writer for comics. He writes stories in his whimsical and fantastical way that we all know, but it also tackles a lot of problems connected to mental health and to mind-bending adventures, which Neil Gaiman does well in his novels as well. Apart from that, the art was very mid-zeros. There's a lot of mid-zeros comics that look like this. The Eternals in this are a group of mystical beings that were planted on Earth by the Celestials, which are the giant robots on the background. But in this case, they don't remember they are Eternals. They live as normal humans among the people and forget they have powers until one of them goes around to awaken the Eternals that have lost their powers. And in that case it becomes like a sort of, I don't know, uncovering the powers of your lost brothers and sisters, and they all turn out to be superheroes fighting against a common goal. I really love the story. I was led to believe this was a concise story, that it ended and it started, but it really was only the first half of a story, I think, because it really was the awakening of the Eternals. But so yeah, that's what I thought about this comic. I'm excited for the movie, and I hope this was a. So yeah, those were my thoughts about this comic. It was really amazing, and I'm really excited for the movie coming up. Yeah. And with that, those were the 6 books I read in September. I hope you enjoyed hearing my thoughts about these books. And I hope you will like, subscribe, and maybe stick around for the next video. Thanks again to those who commented last time. It means a lot to me. and I hope I am back with a new video next week, which is most probably gonna be a review video on the book I'm currently reading, which is Stephen King's It. I'm still digging through, but since it's such a big book, I would like to do a separate review for it. So I hope you look forward to that. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a really amazing day. See ya!